Hello, and thanks for joining me on today's new session. We have an exciting panel for you. We have two event experts who will be exploring the great concepts behind hybrid events, which will help us look at, innovative concepts during COVID. So we've got Alex Gilbert, who is Operations and Community Director at ICE. And we also have Will Swannell, who's the co-founder of HireSpace. Hi, Will. Hi, Alex. And so, Alex, first over to you. I know that yourself and Will, over the last few weeks, have been looking at, innovative ideas around hybrid events. And so I would love for you to just talk through a bit more as to the objectives and context of the hybrid events you're actually planning.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the lovely intro. So hi, I'm Alex. And what I do is I'm a community director for a community called ICE, which is essentially a group of high growth tech founders, predominantly based in London, but also internationally as well. A part of our community is very much, it's based on forming deep personal connections between these founders. So they form lifelong friendships, and also off the back of that, there's very strong personal and professional support that comes through that community. How we've been doing that in the past is through a lot of physical events and trips. So obviously at the moment, we're in a bit of a tricky spot in terms of how we create those engagements. And we've been doing a lot of support online, but obviously now with the changes in restrictions, we're keen to find a way to help our members engage face-to-face in those meaningful, intimate engagements that we do like to create. So we're trying to do that with our monthly Clubhouse event. So usually before lockdown, everyone would meet up once a month for drinks, get together. We'd have icebreakers, a certain theme on that month. And it would just be a way for people to meet new members, but also existing ones that they knew. Obviously, during lockdown, we've been doing that virtually. There's only so many quizzes you can run to make those events engaging. So now we're looking at how do we run this in a hybrid way. So bringing together small groups of people from the membership physically, and then also within those groups, engaging them with members who are dialing in virtually. So with Will Swannell as a member of ICE and also CEO of HireSpace, we kind of said to him, right, how can we do this? And so we're looking at running something at the start of July. And yeah, I'll let Will kind of take it from there.
Well, yeah, thanks, Alex. So yeah, we've been planning this event for a couple of weeks now, and as you said, the objective is just to bring people together and to allow them to make those connections. It's something that we've had to think about lots of different considerations around reducing the risk of COVID safety and making sure that it's in line with what people feel comfortable in. But at the same time, sort of with my HireSpace hat on, I've been working on a Safe for Events accreditation, which has helped us to plan this event. So in terms of the format, we've just sent out invitations where we've collected all the information required for the event. So where people are isolating, so that you can minimise transport time, sort of preferences on whether they want to attend virtually or whether they want to attend in person. And some other important stuff we'll come on to, and then dividing those people up into groups of 4 to 6, where they can, if they want to attend the event in person, can meet somewhere locally. It could be a local park, it could be a local square, it could be somebody's garden if they're lucky enough to have a lovely garden. And also joined within those groups by the virtual attendees as well, so that they can feel included into it. We're then laying on some activities on top of that, just to make sure that we're keeping the engagement and making sure the virtual attendees feel part of those small groups.
Fantastic. And so, Alex, events are all about, people having fun, right? And so with these hybrid events, how are you going to make sure that your, attendees are still attending an event that they will enjoy? Like, how do you really bring the fun factor to hybrid events?
Alex? Yeah, it's tricky. We're definitely going to be trying lots of things out. I think to be perfectly frank, in this first version, We're not going to push people too far. I think it's fun enough, the fact that everyone's just getting to see each other and engage and sit down together, have a drink, and just discuss what's been happening for the last couple of months. Obviously, that will only last so long in terms of fun factor. So we will start to look at, right, how do we sort of gamify a bit? Do we do cocktail making? Is it karaoke? Do we assign a DJ? So give people in the group certain roles. So it's kind of like, it's not too sort of organized fun, but it's kind of just giving them pointers to make them feel like, okay, yeah, we can have a DJ, we can have a games master, we can have, you know, silly icebreaker questions that kind of make us sort of open up and be more vulnerable to start with, and kind of get the mood going for the event, because they are quite small groups, so it isn't sort of an intimate engagement. So yeah, it's tricky, but I think it's also what we love to do at ICE is just get everyone else's ideas too. So we'll put these ideas out there, like have a DJ, but then we'll also say, you're all doing it yourselves, you're going to try different things, feed them back to us, and then what we do is we start to put together a bit of a ideas and resources list, so that the next time we do it, we can say, look at what everyone else did and how fun that was. So it's kind of us enabling it, but then also it's a two-way relationship with people taking part in the events too.
No, it sounds great. And Will, you know, new event types will obviously pose new challenges. So, you know, with these hybrid events, have you started to consider what risks you may kind of come faced with for these types of events? And it'd be great, Will, if you could describe those risks and perhaps how you're kind of thinking around, you know, combating those potential risks as well.
Yeah, no, we put a lot of thought into the different risks surrounding the event, and it's a really important piece, like both in terms of the risks themselves, but also in terms of the perception of them from the attendee point of view. If people feel that an event's too risky or don't feel safe, then they're not going to enjoy it, and they may not attend. So in terms of the measures that we put in place, we are like providing for those that may not have them, like hand sanitizer, a mask, and a sterile brass key, so they can get through doors and, you know, press traffic lights and all that sort of stuff without actually touching them. That's optional, because of course sustainability should remain part of events, even through this crisis. Everyone has to sort of sign off that they, if they're attending in person, that they feel healthy and don't have symptoms. We're making sure that we maintain records for contact tracing purposes of the event, so that if someone does become ill afterwards, that we know who was there. And then also the localization of where we suggest people meet is really important as well. You don't want to be forcing people to jump on the bus or, you know, jump on the tube unnecessarily. So making sure they're really hyper local, and that we understand whether they have a bike and whether they can get there safely. We've also had to make sure that, like, in planning those locations, especially because, you know, it's a social bunch, and it's a really fun event, that none of the locations are too close, because, you know, much as an event planner, you can try and make it as safe as possible. People do like to get together. And the last thing you want when organising something like this is for the two of the groups to merge. We've made sure to keep them apart.
And so, you know, it's great for, as you said, for people that are actually going to be able to join, like physically, you know, in these kind of smaller groups. But I guess a key part of this are also the virtual attendees. You know, they also want to feel a part of this. And so, Alex, I'd love to hear from you a bit more as to, like, how will you ensure that these virtual attendees actually still feel engaged? You know, how do you make sure they don't feel left out by not being able to join in with, you know, people in the kind of physical event?
Yeah, it is. This is probably one of the biggest challenges of trying this. You know, there's certain things we're going to do to make sure it's as smooth as possible, and it's not a case of someone just forgets there's someone there listening in. We're going to do this by allocating virtual attendees ahead of time to specific groups. You know, the specific groups will create a WhatsApp group and the virtual attendees will be within that WhatsApp group, so feel sort of fully connected to that group before the event. We'll have sort of a virtual green room, so that if any virtual attendees kind of aren't quite feeling it and they're actually like, you know what, I just want to catch up with other people virtually on the event, and then we'll have that space for them as well to kind of engage in if they want to head that way. And then just stuff like having everyone with an earpiece in, so having a headphone in their ear, and so you can have Zoom on your phone and have that person in your ear the whole time, so then you don't forget they're there. Because I think if you're outside, if someone has a laptop over there, it's not going to be workable in terms of really being aware of that person or those people the whole time. So as a way we can get everyone to have Zoom on their phones or whatever technology we're using, and to have the earpiece in, then everyone in that group is aware, and it's much more fluid in terms of that conversation for someone to take part in it. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, and I think it's the area where we'll get the most amount of learnings after this first one, so maybe we can all come together again and report back.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I think, you know, it's a new event, so there's going to be definitely some new challenges you have to explore. And actually, we've got a question from one of the audience actually that is asking around that topic, in that, do you think you're going to have to do some dry runs to make sure that everything runs smoothly? And if so, like, how many dry runs do you think it would take, you know, before you go ahead, essentially?
Well, we're in fact running a dry run of this event on the 11th of June, which I'm really excited about. It'll in fact be, as far as I know, the first like higher space safe for events accredited event that's run, and perhaps one of the first post lockdown in-person events. But it's completely essential to I think to try and do a dry run to make sure that everything goes well. You know, this is new learning for the events industry, and each different event will have its own context. So if possible, definitely worth doing a dry run, and we'll be sharing a write up of our dry run on our blog after the event.
And going back to you, Alex, on the virtual attendees, I think our audience is really interested in that point, Alex, because someone's actually asked a question in that, are you looking at ways to create food and beverage offerings which can be provided to people who are at home as well, so they can enjoy that? Have you thought around that, Alex, at all?
We haven't thought around that specifically in terms of this event. We have more with fully virtual events, because we're able to make that standard across the group. The tricky part of the hybrid is, and especially having different groups in different locations, is kind of creating the opportunity for everyone to have the same food and beverage experience, which is kind of why you would try and do that, from my perspective. Also, and this kind of goes to one of the other questions that's come through, is this event isn't going to be charged for either in person or virtually, and we've done that because we just want to make it that level playing field as well. So people will be going, and you know, people who are meeting in person, it's their decision where they go and get drinks from, it's their decision where they go and get food from, and as Will mentioned, we'll be giving them guidelines on that around the location where they are. And then the virtual attendee will be aware of that and kind of what their decisions are, so they can engage in that in the way they want to right now. Our approach this time has been to kind of engineer around the safety and the moderation and the virtual hybrid element, but not so much that food and beverage side for now.
Okay. Another question we have is, do timescales look different for the hybrid events?
Well, I think we've found that like the timescale for virtual events has certainly been certainly been a lot quicker. They are easier to plan. There's fewer logistics, and that's not something that necessarily applies for hybrid. I think the first hybrid events that people start to do as we come through to the end of the summer will probably need a bit more planning. You know, people will be doing them for the first time. There's lots of learnings. People want to do dry runs, so they should give themselves good time to plan one. But you know, like having having helped with organising this and lots of in-person events before. I think once we're through that, then you'll be able to organise them, on a fairly short timescale.
And Alex, in terms of what happens after kind of COVID, when perhaps some of the restrictions are lifted, do you think that hybrid events will be here to stay? Like, how do you see this kind of evolving? That's one of the kind of key questions. Do you think hybrid events will stick around forever?
I think to a certain extent, yes. I'm by no means the authority on this. It's just my personal view. I think to a certain extent, yes, especially for the next 6 to 9 months, because everyone is in such individual situations, and for events, it's key for us to be as inclusive as possible going forward. So it is really, really important that we test and we test and we test how these events work, and we pull together that best practice so that it does become an optional standard in the industry. I think it will be tricky, but more and more we put together online tools and really engaging tools for coming to something virtually that's physical, the better that experience will be, and the easier that engagement will be. So yeah, I think it's a tricky one, and I think we're all kind of, as we're talking about now, on that journey to testing it and seeing how it works. I think by the end of the year, you could have a Christmas party where some people are there, some people aren't there, and everyone's sharing the same jokes. So yeah, we'll see where we end up.
Great. And Will, finally, a good question we've got from the audience is, for people that are, really interested in implementing their own hybrid events, like how would you actually suggest that people position, like trying this new format with their budget holders so they can actually, conduct a hybrid event themselves? Or should they go for their own guidance, perhaps? Will, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when talking to budget holders, there's 2 points. In terms of the justification for a hybrid event, it comes back to the objectives. Like if the event, which many are, about bringing people together, that's something which can fundamentally be done like better with those real in-person connections that you can do with a hybrid event. So in terms of the return that someone's getting for the event, I think that's quite compelling. And then I think there's a second piece around the safety. People do want to make sure they're minimizing the risks. We at Higher Space been working really hard over the last couple of months to launch our Safer Events accreditation, which standardizes all that safety and independently accredits it as well. So I think that also is a really useful tool. An event organizer can get themselves accredited to persuade a budget holder to push forward with a hybrid event.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up our session today. And thank you much for everybody joining us. And thank you so much for Alex and Will. We've had some fantastic questions that have come through already. But if anyone does want to ask a question, please continue to, and then hopefully we'll be able to funnel that to the event experts throughout the day, and they can get back to you. But hopefully you've been inspired by this session. And as Will said, start to explore hybrid events in your own way. And hopefully, this is something that's here to stay. Thank you, everybody.